Welcome to Careless Coder. Today some retro nostalgia. I'm going to review the Atari 50th Anniversary Edition from Digital Eclipse. Motherfucker! It is kinda hard to believe that Atari is now 50.5 years old. So when I heard that the Atari 50th Anniversary Edition for all the different platforms came out, I just had to have it. I bought it for the Xbox and it's been collecting dust for almost 3 months now. I didn't have the time with work. So I finally came around to review it, and apparently it's one of the best collections there is. At the same time, I also bought this one. I will do a review on this. This is 2600 only in the next video, but I'm a bit of a collector for these sort of weird things when they're anniversary editions, so I do that. So let's jump in and see if all the other reviews are right. So we are greeted by this awesome splash screen. And I kept looking at it and started polishing my joystick out of sheer boredom. And still nothing happened. Apparently I had missed something. I tried every button on my controller. Except for the Xbox button. In order for this to start, you have to press the Xbox button and then get out of it. This anniversary collection was created by Digital Eclipse. And it's not just a collection of ROMs, it's so much more, making this the best anniversary collection out there. You get Reimagined games, but also, for me, the top seller is this virtual museum that starts at the arcade and ends all the way in the 90s with the Jaguar. And this is really where Atari started, right? With PONG. But before that, Bushnell created Computer Space, the first arcade game. And for every of the products you have these awesome product shots that you can zoom into, look around. And there is even the odd interview and lots of artwork.
For some reason, I'm looking through the San Jose Mercury in the just random stuff section for sale. I kept the first one, which is a beautiful yellow Computer Space, and I kept PONG number 46. And we got the rest of them running and working as good as we could. We got it all for $5,000. I don't regret the purchase one bit. Not for a minute.
There are a lot of interesting names in these interviews, like Carrie Kitchen, David Krane, Howard Scott Warshaw, the guy that allegedly killed the computer game industry with E.T., and even Nolan Bushnell. So next to all the great product shots, you get a lot of insight from engineers and management as well, and that is really valuable. And talking about management, we saw Ray Kazar. He was not really too fond of engineers. He found them high-strung prima donnas. So they created this t-shirt and wore it to annoy him. And I did similar thing at IBM. When I was working there, I had 3 managers and I was the only engineer. So I had created a t-shirt, IBM, I'm being managed. They did not really like it and asked me to take it off. So I took off the shirt, and back then I still had a 6-pack, but they were like, yeah, that doesn't work either, so put it inside out. So I did, and you could still see through it. I love that artwork from the 70s, it's so cool. Especially since it was a bit sexist. Look at this one, gotcha! A guy running behind a girl, grabbing her. And she is sort of like a spirit, she's sort of see-through. And look at the joystick or trackballs, they look like boobies. And they were actually intended to look like boobies, without the nips. God, how we missed the 70s, where you could just grab a girl by the waist, pull her in, caress her boobies, and she would smile and shout, touch me, I wanna feel your body. And yeah, Touch Me is basically Simon Says. I never knew that Atari created Simon Says. So that was a learning experience. Another section that I really enjoy were the home computers. And I especially loved the commercials, how they went head to head with Commodore using these pretentious little kits.
How's business?
Booming.
Terrific. How do you keep track of your customers?
My ATARI 400 home computer. Excuse me, Dad.
Why Atari?
Shopped around. It's a lot of computing capability for such a low price.
You use it a lot?
Sure, life's not all fun and games. There's homework, I even program.
Uh-huh.
Atari has lots of software, not all the others do. And of course, only Atari has games like Centipede.
Games?
Well, we executives have to unwind.
What is she complaining? Executives never work. They are too stupid to work. And these are the 7 reimagined games. QuadraTank, really cool. Sword Quest, not really my thing. Touch Me, yeah, I hacked the original Simon Says last year. That is more my thing. I don't want to be like a Harvey Weinstein. This is really cool. And of course, YAR'S Revenge. Now look at this facelift. This was already a great game 40 years ago, but now with this awesome facelift, it is even better. And so addictive. I just have to get better at it. Then Vector Scatter, I don't know how to pronounce that. But it's basically asteroids and Lunar Lander and some 3D vector racing game. It's really highly addictive. So once you clear out a asteroid field, you will become a Lunar Lander. And Lunar Lander is really one of my all-time favorite games. And then you end up in this racing game and it gets progressively, every time you go around these 3, more and more difficult. And yeah, it's really kind of addictive. I'm really into this game. And then QuadraTank. QuadraTank is basically a reimagination of Combat, and Combat was the bundle title that came with the 2600. And people would go head to head with these little tanks and have a great time. You will have a better time with this reimagination. It's so cool. There's so many gadgets that you can find in these crates. And the controlling is really kind of challenging. You use your 2 analog sticks. And I have the distinct feeling that you can break down because sometimes it's harder to steer right or left. You can move the turret independently. It's so addictive. I cannot wait to get 4 friends in and go head to head with 4 people. I currently play it against the AI with only 1 AI. And every now and then I manage to defeat it, but the AI is really, really strong. If you have 2 AI players, well, then you're basically screwed. But yeah, this is an awesome reimagination. And this alone, for me, together with Lunar Lander, the original, and the Vector Spectre, is worth the 39 euros that I paid for it. I have been playing literally all Sunday. First watched the whole museum and then played this until it was late. And had a great time. Yeah, look at that. Oh yes, I got the AI tank. Owned you, bitch! And PONG, that is where it started for Atari, and also for me. It was the first video game I ever played. Now this game is very, very difficult because there is no AI player. So you play against yourself with the 2 analog sticks. And as you can see, I'm not really doing a great job. Woo! Yeah. And the great thing is that you can remove the bezels if you don't like the original bezels. I think that's a selling point. And now you have this TV mode that looks like a TV with scan lines. I really love the tunability of these arcade cabinets. You can also set the dip switches like you could with the original. So yeah, hours and hours of fun. But for me, the best arcade games from Atari are Tempest and Lunar Lander. Now let me show you how I Lunar Land, because I'm actually pretty decent at that. I remember playing this as a 9-year-old during a holiday in Spain. And I found out that you actually need to land to the objects closest to you, because that saves a lot of fuel. If you go over the whole mountaintop, and sometimes you have to, it will require a lot of fuel. And as soon as you're above one, you fire your retro rockets, which is basically, here I do that, your shoulder button on the Xbox, and there's a dedicated button on the console or arcade, and you will just allow yourself to fall down slowly and make tiny corrections with your steering and your thrust, but you do that as little as possible. And when you align properly before you fire your retro rockets, you really don't have to spend a lot of fuel. Here I'm aligning for the top one. And if you overshoot again, just press your retro rocket. You will go up, waste a little fuel, but that's better than crashing. And there you go. 200 points. At one time I held the high score at that machine in Spain. And that for a 9-year-old, that was kind of fun. And I've been playing this way too much last Sunday, to be honest. And here again, you see me actually just let the Lunar Lander fall, retro rockets, and I'm attempting to land on that 5X. Just falling down backwards. Or downwards. You don't fall backwards in this case, you fall downwards. And it's just a game of patience. And that's what I really like about this. It's really one of those games that you just sit and enjoy playing. And the vector graphics, they are really, really nicely reproduced here. And there you go. It's as simple as that. The retro rocket is the secret sauce. As you can see, I mainly enjoy all the arcade ROMs. And Tempest is one of those classic games that just, for some reason, works. I don't know what it is. It's just basically a shooter, but it is so exciting and addictive. It's really great. Maybe it's the graphics, the color, I don't know. But it's a game that I'm always drawn to. And especially in this case with the analog stick, it sort of works. You don't have the rotary dial, of course, like the original arcade cabinet, but with the analog stick, it's a bit getting used to, but then it sort of approximates the rotary dial really well. And yeah, then you have way too much fun and spend way too much time playing this. But yeah, it's one of those classics. And Tempest 2000 is actually also bundled here, and that comes with the Jaguar. I would have wished that they also bought the rights to Tempest 4000, but hey, you can't get it all. And then Quantum, one of these very unique arcade games, and look at the bezel around this. This is really so nicely done. And also this vector game feels like a vector game. And also the analog joystick here really helps. And basically what Quantum is you play a large hadron collider, I think, and you try to capture these quantum particles by drawing a circle around them. Now, as a kid, I never really realized how complex the math actually is, especially in assembly, to see whether a particle is trapped within a circle. So that is kind of fascinating. I dabbled creating one of these at the C64. And yeah, it wasn't easy, but yeah, good fun. And how do you create these things? By the way, that particle had gravity. That was the reason why my Hadron Collider was drawn into it. But yeah, it's a creativity that the early engineers, designers had at Atari that created these unique titles and unique game experiences. And in my case, it had definitely gravity. You saw that? I was drawn into it. That was the gravity. But yeah, for me, it captures a sort of time where things were easier, more fun. The world was better placed than it is now. And yeah, playing these really bring me back to the early 80s. And yeah, made me feel very nostalgic. God, this is a great game. And there is this little nugget that I found in the museum as well, that I found very, very funny. And that is in line with my channel, where we hack hardware and software to do crazy things. And here they describe how to turn a right-handed joystick into a left-handed joystick by basically rewiring the micro switches. I knew the people in the 70s were more intelligent than the people now, but I think this may be a bit overboard, soldering your joystick. But yeah, kind of fun, to be honest. I will end this review with a great interview with Gary Kitchen and David Krane, which I really enjoyed.
There's this funny time period in the history of, if I wrote a book on the history of the video game industry, there's this funny time period where we had left Activision and we went from this fabulous AAA office complex, beautiful. We had more space than we needed by a factor of 5, and we went to the most horrible office in Midland Park, New Jersey, in the basement of an optician's office. Game industry, this was after the crash. Game industry was a disaster. And it was just, oh man, what an office. It was horrible. But we survived in it. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. So anyway, we're in this horrible office and we're doing C64 stuff at that point. And I get a call from a buddy of mine. Actually, he was our part-time sales guy. And he always visited Toys R Us, and he knew them really well. He called me and said, you know, you're gonna laugh, but they want to know if anybody's doing 2600 games. Because at that point, there were none. Nobody was doing them.
But there were 26 million consoles in homes.
And people were going in Toys R Us saying, why don't you sell games for my Atari anymore? So I said, wow, that's interesting. How many would he buy if he had a 2600 game? He said, oh, you know, 20, 30,000 pieces probably. And I said, all right, I'll get back to you. So we did Title Match Wrestling and Super Skateboarding, first two titles. I mean, regular skateboarding, first two titles. And he loved them, and they sold like crazy. And at that point in time, we were the only people in the world making games on the Atari 2600. My phone rings, and it's the Tramiels. So he did some 2600 games. You know, do a couple for us, because word got around. There's actually a need. And then Activision calls and says, do some 2600 games for us? And I said, well, why don't you guys just do them? He goes, well, you know, if I could be completely honest with you, we don't have anything. We don't have the specs, we don't have manuals, we don't have the equipment. He said, we couldn't make a 2600 game if we wanted to. So could you make something for us? I tell people that, they're like, who the hell wanted 2600 games? You know what? No one told consumers that there had been a crash. No one went to their house and said, you don't like video games anymore. Because that's what Toys R Us and Walmart said. People don't like video games anymore. But the people at home were sitting going, God damn, I'm tired of combat. Isn't there something else I can play on this machine? So it was good. We had a great run there. We had a lot of money off those games.
So there you have it. Yes, all the millennial reviewers are right. This is one of the best game collection anniversary editions out there. So if they like it, you and me as Gen Xers, we must really love it, because we were there when those machines came to market. We lived through the 70s and the 80s, and I really date myself right now. But yeah, to me this was a really nostalgic rush, and I totally enjoyed it. There is one criticism though, which I can get over, but that is that there are no Activision 2600 games included. And I understand that because David Krane and Gary Kitchen didn't leave Atari at the best of terms when Ray the Nazi came on board. But yeah, those are those classic games on the 2600 that you want to relive. And that is why I also purchased this one, the 50th Anniversary Gold Edition, because it actually contains Pitfall and Pitfall 2. So we will review this in the next video. In the meantime, I suggest that if you have the money to spend and you really like old arcade games and love that retro vibe, get yourself a copy of Atari 50th Anniversary Edition. It's awesome. I hope you learned something, and see you in the next one.